fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves clung to my skin like a lover's perfume, and the groan of ancient oaks sang a lullaby only I could hear. My fingers, calloused and stained with bark in the faint, lingering crimson of my own blood, traced the rough grain of the sapling I had just felled. It was no ordinary stick. It thrummed with a quiet, hungry energy that matched the rapid beat of my heart. My name is Elara, and the whispering pines are my sanctuary. The village of Oakhaven called me a witch, a recluse, a danger. They never saw the way Kale's dark eyes lingered on my shoulders when I bent to gather firewood, the way his hand lingered a heartbeat longer on my waist as he helped me lift the heavy beams. His calloused palm was a promise of protection, his breath a warm current against my cheek, sending a shiver of longing down my spine. "You always work too hard, El," Kale would say, his voice low and rough as bark. "Let me share the load." I would smile, feeling the heat of his smile settle in my chest like an ember. "Only if you promise not to break the branches," I teased, and he would grin, the corners of his mouth darkening the shadows on his face. Silas, the quiet bard of the woods, whispered verses that curled around my spine like ivy. When his fingers brushed the scar on my forearm, a jolt of electric longing surged through me, and his low chant resonated in my chest, stirring the emerald pulse that pulsed beneath my skin. He taught me to listen to the trees, to feel the magic humming in every leaf, and in the quiet moments between verses, his lips brushed my ear, tasting the copper of my blood. "The forest sings for you, Elara," he would murmur, his breath warm against my ear. "Hear the verses of the wind, the stories of the roots." His words were more than poetry. They were a spell that wrapped around my heart, tightening with each syllable. I could feel the magic in his voice, a current that made my skin tingle, as if the very air between us crackled with unseen fire. Reese, the hunter with eyes like storm clouds, drew his bow with a fluid grace that made my breath catch. His arrow sang as it left the string, and when he pulled me close to shield me from the whipping wind, his scent, wet pine and musk, filled my nostrils, igniting a fire that rivaled the one growing inside the wooden walls of my home. His hand on my lower back was firm, his whisper in my ear a promise of danger and desire. "Stay close, Elara," he would say, his voice a rumble that seemed to echo the thunder above us. "The forest protects those it loves." Each of them held a piece of me, a fragment of my soul that I had never allowed anyone else to see. The whispering pines had always been my refuge, but now they were also the stage upon which my heart performed its most daring act. The sky darkened suddenly, as if a great hand had pulled a black veil across the sun. Wind began to howl through the canopy, rattling the leaves like 1,000 tiny bells. The storm arrived with a roar, lightning splitting the sky and tearing my fragile house apart. I could feel the vibration of each bolt through the roots beneath my feet, a trembling that resonated through my bones. Kale's arm tightened around me, his grip both protective and possessive. "Hold on to me," he growled, his voice barely audible over the thunder. I clung to his broad shoulder, feeling the solid weight of his body anchor me as the world around us shattered. Silas's chant rose like a shield, his voice a deep, resonant hum that vibrated against my ribs. "By leaf and stone, by root and bone, we bind the storm," he intoned, his eyes closed as he drew the ancient magic from the forest itself. The words seemed to weave a luminous veil around us, flickering like fireflies in the darkness. Reese's arrow sang a protective arc, its tip humming with raw power as it struck the trembling timber. He stood beside me, bow in hand, eyes narrowed as he aimed at the fissures that threatened to split the walls. "Stay behind me," he whispered, and I felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against my own. The wood shuddered, sap hot against my skin, and the ancient eyes of the forest opened, glowing amber orbs hidden in bark, hungry for the power I had become. I felt the emerald fire in my veins flare, a wild, untamed blaze that threatened to consume me. The sapling I held pulsed brighter, its core a verdant heart beating in time with my own. In that moment I realized the true danger was not the storm, but the choice I was forced to make. Kale's fierce protectiveness, Silas's intoxicating verses, Reese's primal strength, each offered a different salvation, each demanded a different surrender. A shadow lunged from the darkness, a twisted mass of bramble and night, its thorns dripping with a black ichor that hissed as it touched the ground. I thrust the sapling forward, its emerald core pulsing, and the forest's ancient eyes flared with a blinding light. The shadow recoiled, shrieking, as the three men surged to my side. Kale's arm became a wall of iron, his muscles straining as he pushed the darkness back. "You will not take her," he roared, his voice a thunderclap that seemed to match the storm itself. Silas's chant sharpened into a blade of sound, each note slicing through the bramble like a sword. "Feel the song of the world, creature of night," he cried, his fingers dancing in the air, drawing symbols that glowed with sapphire light. Reese's arrow transformed into a spear of wind, the shaft whistling as it pierced the heart of the shadow. "For the forest, for you," he shouted, his eyes blazing with a fierce determination that made my blood race. When the last echo faded, the storm broke, rain washing the charred earth clean. The house lay in ruins, but we stood together, breathing the same damp air, our bodies still humming with the afterglow of magic and desire. I turned to the three men who had become my anchors in the tempest. Their eyes searched mine, each waiting for an answer that would bind us forever. I felt the heat of Kale's hand, the electric thrill of Silas's touch, the grounding scent of Reese's presence. My heart hammered, my emerald pulse thrummed, and I whispered the name that would seal our fate. "All of you," I said, my voice steady, my desire raw. "I choose us together." Kale's smile was fierce, his eyes softening as he brushed a stray lock of hair from my face. "Then we stand as one," he said, his voice a low promise. Silas stepped forward, his hand hovering over my cheek before he placed it gently, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. "Our song will never end," he whispered, his breath warm against my skin. Reese placed his hand over my heart, feeling the rhythm that matched his own. "And the hunt will always bring us back," he murmured, his voice a steady drum. The forest seemed to sigh, the ancient eyes dimming to a soft, approving glow. In the aftermath, we rebuilt not just a home, but a bond forged in fire, song, and arrow, a love as wild and endless as the whispering pines themselves. Days turned into weeks, and the new cottage rose from the ashes, its walls woven from living vines that sang with the same emerald hum that had saved us. Kale taught me to shape wood with his strong hands, his laughter echoing as we hammered nails together. Silas filled our evenings with music, his lute strings weaving stories of our triumph that made the fire crackle brighter. Reese taught me to track the wind, to read the subtle shifts in the canopy, his steady presence a reminder that I was never truly alone. One night after the rain had ceased and the moon rose full and silver, we sat on the porch, the scent of pine heavy in the air. Kale rested his head on my shoulder, his arm wrapped around my waist. Silas leaned against the railing, his fingers idly plucking a soft melody on his lute. Reese sat opposite us, his eyes reflecting the moonlight, a quiet smile playing on his lips. "Do you ever wonder," I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper, "what would have happened if the storm had taken us all?" Kale tightened his grip, his voice a rumble like distant thunder. "I would have fought until my last breath. I would have given everything to keep you safe." Silas's eyes softened, his song fading into a gentle hum. The verses would have ended, but the forest would have remembered us. Our story would have become a legend whispered among the trees. Reese chuckled, the sound low and comforting, "And I would have hunted the shadows until they were nothing but memory. The world would still be yours, Elara." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, not of sorrow but of gratitude. The storm had threatened to tear us apart, yet it had also forged a bond stronger than any oak. I reached out, placing my hand over each of theirs, feeling the unique rhythm of their hearts. "We are more than survivors," I said, my voice steady. "We are the heartbeat of this forest, the song that will echo through every leaf." The night stretched on, the fire crackling, the wind sighing through the pines. In that moment I understood that love was not a choice between one path or another, but a tapestry woven from many threads. Kale's fierce protectiveness, Silas's intoxicating verses, Reese's primal strength, each thread was essential, each thread made the whole unbreakable. Years later, when travelers passed through Oak Haven and spoke of the witch who lived among the whispering pines, they would hear the tale of a woman who chose not one love, but three. They would hear of the storm that tested her, the shadow that threatened her, and the three men who stood beside her, each offering a different kind of salvation. And I would smile, feeling the emerald pulse still humming beneath my skin, knowing that the forest had given me more than magic. It had given me a family, a love that was as wild and endless as the pines themselves.